Hi, I'm Peter Zabrowski with Halifax Shipping News, and I'm here with an update about the fire at the port of New York and New Jersey at the Newark terminal aboard the container roll-on roll-off vessel Grande Costa D'Avorio. The ship was loading cargo last night, and approximately 9:30 p.m. a vehicle caught fire on deck 10. That fire quickly spread to decks 11 and 12. The crew and the longshoremen evacuated the ship, and the Newark Fire Department responded. While trying to make entry and get a quick hit on the fire, fighters were taken back by the speed at which the fire had spread, and while evacuating the ship, 2 members got lost. They were subsequently found but have passed away as a result of the injuries. 5 others, firefighters and paramedics, were also injured yesterday in firefighting and search and rescue efforts. Fighting shipboard fires is very different from fighting fires in buildings. Besides all my nautical knowledge, I am a firefighter with the local department. Shipboard firefighting is very specialized, and especially on car carriers, extremely difficult. And I'm going to go into a couple of reasons why. First of all, ships have their own firefighting systems, and they're built to international standards. That means that hose sizes, fittings, couplers, threads, all meet whatever that international standard is, and it's likely that your local fire department does not have the appropriate adapters or connections. That means your local fire department is unlikely to be able to interface with the ship's systems to use them, so they're either going to have to stretch their own lines and provide their own water supply, or they're going to have to use the shipboard facilities. The problem with using the shipboard facilities is you don't know what state they're in. Inside one of these car carriers, imagine the worst parking garage you've ever been in. Now make the ceiling lower and put more cars in it. These spaces are extremely tight. They load these ships in such a way that once you park the car and exit it, the next row gets parked 12 inches away, so you can't really make entry into or out of these vehicles once they've been stowed on board the ship. Firefighting equipment, just the PPE that you wear, is quite bulky. Think of a large snowsuit, and then add a tank on your back. You take up a lot of space plus your tools. It's a very tight space to operate in, and it would be very easy to get stuck or stranded. The nature of the ships, everything is steel. Steel often conducts heat. Depending on where you're operating around the fire, your surfaces could be extremely hot, so fire can quickly spread through floors and walls between compartments if cooling isn't applied to the surfaces. If enough heat builds up, it can transfer, heating the neighboring compartments, and when it gets hot enough, the contents of those can spontaneously combust. Smoke does not have easy paths to exit the ship. Often mechanical ventilation needs to be used, which can either create flow paths, fanning the flames, or make compartments have absolutely zero visibility. A car carrier has very large open decks. They're connected by ramps, which can all move. The ramps often have vehicles stowed on them. And then you have trouble with visibility because the space is filled with smoke and it's extremely hot. Both the air temperature and all the deck surfaces, which are conducting heat and possibly transferring the fire around. I've seen some reports that suggest that the Newark firefighters were unable to interface their equipment with the ship due to incompatible fittings, which was a concern that I brought up, and then had to attempt to fight the fire with shipboard facilities where they suffered from low water pressure. So if you're a firefighter and if you find yourself in a situation where you're forced to use unfamiliar equipment in unfamiliar circumstances, it's time to back out, regroup, rethink, and set yourself up with what you need to get the job done. Yesterday it was reported that the fire was under control. That doesn't appear to be the case, given the presence of 2 of the FDNY's fireboats today on scene spraying water on the upper deck, trying to keep it cool. And ongoing operations, which saw substantial smoke and heat venting from the vehicle ramp. The big question, I guess, is why did this fire get out of control so quickly, and how did the Newark Fire Department get so outmatched? Shipboard firefighting is a specialized skill. The Newark Fire Department is likely qualified and experienced in structural firefighting, that's fighting fires in buildings. Fighting fires on ships is a very different environment. Ships also have stability issues. If you apply too much water, it collects and can flood and sink the vessel. That's somewhat less of a concern on a large vessel like this, but it is still a problem that needs to be considered. Those ceilings, metal walls are going to trap heat and smoke, making the environment very difficult to operate in, assuming you can move around. Typical car fire will burn around 1500 degrees. If you have cars, 6 inches to a foot apart, it doesn't take long for that fire to spread to the neighboring vehicles. And given the quick spread between decks, what likely happened is the fire either spread between vehicles or up a series of ramps between decks 10, 11, and 12, or the fire was able to burn hot enough that it was able to heat the deck above the fire, which then led to the vehicles above catching on fire. According to a Grimaldi Line statement, the ship was carrying 1,200 new and used vehicles and 157 containers. There's actually a fairly healthy trade in used vehicles between North America and West Africa. These are typically older model Toyotas. The nature of Toyotas, parts seem to be available worldwide, and it's actually cheaper to buy a used car in North America, put it on a ship, and send it over to West Africa for resale. There are people in Halifax who do this currently. They ship through ACL, and often the cars can be seen gathered outside the terminal without license plates awaiting shipment. Also, you'll notice that the Grande Costa D'Avorio has cars on the decks outside. On the very upper deck, you'll notice that there are cars. Many of them that have hoods up. It looks like the firefighters were going around trying to disconnect batteries to keep those cars from potentially having their airbags or various struts and anti-collision features exploding due to heat and causing injuries. The ship was built in 2011 and sails for Grimaldi Deep Sea, which is a company that's part of the Italian Grimaldi Group. Grimaldi also operates Atlantic Container Lines with their G4 vessels and are pretty much exclusively in the roll-on, roll-off business. They do operate some roll-on, roll-off vessels that can carry containers, such as the Grande Costa D'Avorio. They also operate pure car truck carriers, which are the traditional shoebox-shaped car carriers, as well as a series of ferries throughout Europe. If you found this video useful, please like it, hit the bell, subscribe to the channel, be notified of future videos. Also, let's take a moment here and remember Augusto Augie Akabu and Wayne Brooks Jr., the two firefighters who were killed fighting this fire.